Welcome back to the Smugglers Den. I'm your host, Tiny Grimes, and it's been a while. I don't even know what number this is, and to be honest, I don't really care what number it is. I'm just excited today because the last time I came to you with a podcast, it was more of an obituary, right? It was FFG is done supporting Star Wars Destiny. Let's talk about the great times we had with the game. There was some sadness, there were some fond memories, but today's different. Today is the rebirth. That's right, the exciting time, the rebirth of Star Wars Destiny, because a crew of unlikely heroes have come together and put way too much time and resources into attempting the near impossible to keep a game alive that has died. Now, when I say near impossible, this has worked before. If you look at the Netrunner community, I would say the Netrunner community is in a better place than when FFG was running it. I'm not going to name designer names, but there were certain designers when they took over. They didn't do a fantastic job with the game, and they left it in a pretty bad spot. And Netrunner, the community was able to come together. The leadership was strong. They were able to fix some cards that were broken, fix the meta, and they're still thriving. On the flip side, we saw the Game of Thrones try something similar. At least Take One went up in flames. I'm sorry if you're listening, my friend. I'm not going to name your name, but we know who you are. That was a traumatic experience. But good news, everyone. I have today one of these courageous few that are going to attempt to keep Star Wars Destiny going, perhaps even in a better way. So let's welcome to the show today, Agent of Zion, or as I've always called him, Voldemort. I'm going to be perfectly honest, Agent of Zion. I don't actually know your name because I've only called you Voldemort for the last 4 years or whatever. So how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Should I tell the Voldemort story? Because you didn't even know the Voldemort story until, what, a week ago?
Yeah. It is pretty amusing, and it makes me look good. So let's roll with it.
All right, good. I'm glad it makes you look good. It makes me look petty and peevish, I believe, but that's okay. So when Spirit of Rebellion came out, we had a bunch of store championships that season. I won my first store championship, maybe my first two. I don't remember the ordering. I think it was number 2. I got to the finals. I was playing my pet deck, my Unkar Nines Stormtrooper deck. I get to the finals. This guy I've never heard of, Agent of Zion, shows up. He's got Poe Maz, and I'm like, all right. How lucky does this Agent of Zion guy get rolling his Poe Maz? Because he clearly made it to the finals, so he's probably pretty lucky. And this guy rolled me off the board like turn 1. I don't remember the names of the card design. Maybe you remember. Maybe you remember it better than I do. But by the end of turn 1, it was clear I had lost. That card that does 3 damage to everyone, you'd somehow done it twice, and the game was basically over.
Yeah. Thermal detonator twice in round 1 that'll put anybody off the table, basically.
Yeah, I normally don't get all that salty in Destiny, but I was already kind of salty about Spirit of Rebellion anyway. I was upset with the direction of the game, with all the action cheating, and this just felt like that culminating moment, right, where like I felt like I had the upper hand in this. I'm playing against this guy who is sort of, to me at least, was an unknown quantity because you were coming up from San Diego, and it felt like luck rolled me off the table. Here we are, like 4 years later. I'm some ancient relic, bygone. Agent of Zion is one of the best players in the game. But the whole time, since that moment, people would say, like, hey, who beat you in the finals? And I would always be like, he who shall not be named. Or Voldemort, depending on my mood. So Agent, that is how you got the nickname Voldemort amongst my community. I'm not sure anyone knows your name amongst my close community, because we've just always called you Voldemort. So Voldemort, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
All right, appreciate it. In your defense, I do think it was really dumb for store champions in the finals to not at least be a best of 3 format. Best of 1 in a store championship final was basically a terrible decision.
I agree, but that's just FFG. Like, the good thing for me is when I went into Destiny, my eyes were so open with how FFG runs games that when, like, I just had this mindset of once FFG starts making colossal errors, I'm just going to slowly back away. I'm not going to make announcement videos about how I'm leaving. I'm just going to be like, All right, FFG, I have had enough now.
Yeah,
all
this
right.
this was my first foray, so it was eye opening all the way through.
And it was hard because FFG wanted this to be a CCG, right? Like they charged real CCG money for this product, and then they wanted to support it like it was a board game, and that doesn't go over that well for CCG players who are like, I spent $400 on this set, and I'm gonna have to do it again soon, and my prize is a patch and a pat on the back. Can we do better than this, please? So that was kind of tough. But again, I wasn't so surprised by it. So Zion, I want to ask you this question: why are you
Shoot.
taking part in the continuing committee, this group to keep the game going? Because I know what it takes. I know people who've run these before. This is not an easy thing for anyone out there in the community who's like, oh, they're probably doing it for the glory. I assure you that is not the reason. So what is the reason? Why are you spending all your time and resources doing this?
This community is amazing. So it's all about the community. I met a ton of friends that I expect to have for the rest of my life through this game. The community is really something special, even though I've played other CCGs before. The welcoming nature of the Destiny community and the fact that we tend to skew a little more older, a little more mature, really, really resonated with me, and I want to give back. I found a real home with the Destiny community, and I don't want to let that go at all. Aside from that, the game itself is just amazing. The game is great. FFG really hit a nail on the head with a concept for a CCG with dice. All the randomness that dice bring to the table, but it actually works, and I don't want to let that go either. So this is me clinging to glory days with community and a game that I love with an IP that I adore. It's a perfect storm of I want this to stick around, and I think I can contribute positively to that effort.
And that is, I think, the right attitude, right? Like I said, it's a challenging process that's pretty thankless. Almost every step of the way, you're going to have someone in the community upset with you, thinking you're doing it wrong and that they could do it better. And so you really have to have a good reason, I think, for doing it.
Well, the plus side there is having had my spirit broken through my actual job for the last 15 years, I am more than willing to admit when somebody else can do something better. And then I will basically grovel at their feet and say, okay, you can definitely do this better than anybody else we have on the team right now. Can you please join the team? Can you please contribute?
Yeah, that's a great attitude. I have noticed also that I saw, I don't remember where I saw it, like a little link of like you can click a button and just submit card ideas, which I think is a great idea. Like just not necessarily taking that card exactly, but just the idea that there is a conduit for all those creative people out there who are like, I have this awesome card idea. Because I've had like 50 of them, and I never really felt like I wanted to just like email Jeremy and be like, hey man, you should make this card. Whereas this feels like a more natural system where I can just submit some ideas and then you guys can either look and say like, hey, that fits into what we're doing, or I don't know, maybe sometime, or thank you but no thank you. That just feels like a really great idea.
We're giving away the greatest prize in gaming every single day.
Wow. Way to stick it to FFG on that one. I always felt like the greatest prize in gaming was a whole bunch of money or a bunch of product, but apparently the greatest prize in gaming is getting to design a single card, which is kind of cool depending on the game. Like Game of Thrones, my buddy got to design a card like 15 years ago, and it's appeared in 3 different versions of Game of Thrones, so it keeps coming back. That was the gift that kept on giving. Now that one was kind of cool. All right, so I guess my first question then is, what is your role in this committee then? Are you like the head guy? Are you one of several head people? Are you like the lowest person on the totem pole where the continued committee was like, Tiny, we don't really care what you think. We're going to give you Agent of Zion. Where do you fit in this?
I'm one of the 6, I guess, head people. My specific role is basically cat herder. I'm good at project management, so I can identify what needs to be done in what order to make something go smoothly. I don't always have the skills to get it specifically done, but I can find the people who do. I can work with them. I can give clear indications of what we need, and then I can kind of fit it all back together in a whole, which is a very long-winded way of saying I don't do much.
Yeah, it's like you don't do
actual work.
Right, you don't do much of the nuts and bolts, but you're the archetype kind of thing, which I think is one of the things that is often overlooked, that successful organizations have people that set up the successful organization, right? Like you can't just have a mishmash of people. There's personality conflicts, there's political conflicts that we see sometimes in these communities, and you need a person who can kind of set things up. Is that where you view your role?
Yeah, I definitely dip my toes into card design, and Faltering Allegiances has some cards that I've created from scratch. Not entirely too many, but I definitely provided input on every single card there, and that's a lot of fun for me. But when you look at, say, the art or the graphic design of like the new card templates, or the rules, or specific wording on cards to make sure that they all work with the rules correctly, I don't do any of that.
Gotcha.
Everybody has put in an enormous amount of work all through everything that goes into getting a card on paper so people can print it at home and enjoy a game.
Nice.
It's
two things
amazing.
I want to ask you about that. You specifically said print it at home, and so I'm just, well, we should follow up on this. So your organization sees itself as a provider of sort of like print to play stuff. You can't actually go to like the continuing committee website and purchase sets and things like that, right?
No, not at all. We felt that would be crossing a legal, ethical, and moral line. And, you know, we're already on shaky ground legally. Like, just to be perfectly honest, I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. And so we don't want to poke the bear or the mouse, as the case may be.
Yeah, I think that's especially smart when you're dealing with Disney. Disney tends to be kind of lawsuit happy. Staying as far away from that as possible is probably a smart plan there.
Yeah, and I think on the whole, we're too small to be noticed, especially if there's zero money changing hands. You know, do they want to pay one of their $2,000 an hour lawyers for 3 hours to shut us down? I don't know.
Yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully the answer to that is no. No, they don't want to. All right, my next question for you is this one. Why do it now? Why not wait longer to set this up? If FFG's involvement seems to be somewhat unclear, I'm of the belief that they're done and that they're just kind of like talking the talk for some reason. Maybe they want to release some final thing that they want to gouge people for one more time. I don't quite know what the deal is, or maybe they just don't want to anger everyone and they've already feel like they've ripped the Band-Aid off. But why not wait until FFG says, like, once and for all, we're done, goodbye?
I mean, the last set was released, not counting Transformations, but the last full set that was released was in July, if memory serves, of 2019. So it's been forever, man. Like, the game won't survive with a stale meta, and there's only so much you can do to alter existing cards, even in like a community format, to keep people engaged and interesting. You need new blood, you need new cards. Especially like with coronavirus and stuff, like even all of these communities meeting at stores and playing together in person, even if it's over just, you know, a few beers, no organized play or anything like that, it took a hit, and we needed to make a move to keep the community engaged and online and waiting to come back to play physically when that comes up.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I feel like you could have done this earlier even. I would have thought that would have been fine. Because like you said, it's been so long, man, that I was like, all right, all my cards must be illegal by now, by like years ago. And then I'm looking, I'm like, what? So many of my cards are still legal? I haven't bought cards in years. How is this possible? And that's when I was realizing, like, oh, there hasn't been a rotation because there just haven't been new cards in so long. So how do you keep a game going if it's just stale, like you said, forever? I don't think that's possible. So I think you're making the right call of jumping in now.
Oh, Covert Missions was in March of 2020. Just correcting myself.
March of 2020.
But yeah, no, you look at it, and Legacies has been the longest input set for any CCG I have ever played. Like, that thing is like core set embedded in the community. It needs to go. Like, something needs to happen to shake things up.
Yeah, name for me real quick the 5 most ubiquitous cards from Legacy, so I can get a sense of what we're talking about here, and my viewers who haven't played in years can be like, "What? That card's still legal? What are we talking about here?"
I mean, you definitely have easy pickings.
Wow.
I believe Crate Speeder was Legacies. Like, this stuff has been in print for so long. Like, you just know it's in print. You may not know specifically what set it's in.
Is it
but
Yoda?
Easy Pickings is definitely the big one there. There's Entangle is in Legacies, I believe. Bartering is in Legacies.
Okay. What about Yoda? The Yoda with the see-through Yoda.
Yep. He was Legacies, if memory serves.
Oh, man. Then I'm mad that you guys are rotating, because I love that. I love my one. There's only one card I like in my Destiny collection, and that's the see-through Yoda card. And, man, now I'm not going to get to play that. Boy.
Sorry.
I can't believe that card was only legal for 3 years.
There's always infinite.
All right. Yeah, so these are good points. We've got these cards that have been legal forever. And you just can't have a new meta if such staples are legal for 3-4 years. Like, that's just not going to happen. All right. Well, this is such a huge task, and so many have tried and failed at this. What do you think sort of sets your group up for success, maybe sets you apart from other groups who have done this? Have you tried to model it all, the Netrunner community? Have you reached out to them? What sort of steps have you taken to try to ensure that you guys are going to make it?
Basically, we went into this with eyes wide open on the fact that we needed to emphasize process very, very early on. So the first however many months it took, we spent just establishing the process by which we would get things done. We went into it knowing that everybody involved was going to disagree, establish processes by which they're really early, everybody in the design and admin teams, and said, look, we're going to get on each other's nerves. We're going to drive each other up the wall. We're still professional. We still all have the same goal in mind, and we will get through it, and it'll be fine. And so the personality conflicts, which do exist, and I'm in no small part a problem when it comes to that. I am very overbearing in the team. I do argue my point of view incessantly, but even I am well aware that I will get overruled, and I will get kind of steamrolled on stuff that other people feel very strongly about, and that's happened, and I'm still here, and I didn't like rage quit or get all bent out of shape or anything.
Yeah, or worse, go on like Reddit and Facebook and talk about what a jerk Elrathian is or something like that. Because
I just tell them in person. I just DM them that.
Like, I know Elrathian must get on your nerves at some point. Yeah, and I think that's one of the really important things is that you have to keep these disagreements in-house, because as soon as they become public, it sort of undermines your credibility. You're a group that's trying to establish yourself. You need that sort of united, forward-facing front, I believe.
Yeah, it hasn't been like nothing but roses and rainbows. We've definitely had issues with people or direction or things of that nature, and we have gotten through it. I think it all eventually got settled amicably, but it's just growing pains that we knew we would have to deal with in some form. It's just always surprising when they do finally come up.
Yeah, sometimes the way they come up too is just so surprising, and you're like, what? That's the thing that's causing all the problems? I thought this other thing would be, and this would be this really small thing. So it can be really interesting and sometimes hard to predict. All right. So this to me is the big question, and I think this is going to be the question that everyone who is like looking at Destiny, stop playing, and is considering coming back is going to want to know the answer to this one. What was your thought process behind taking such a huge swing in the first set? And this is what I mean by this. If this was me, just solely me doing this without anyone helping me, what I would have done is like Awakenings Reloaded. And I would have gone through the Awakenings cards that have been rotated for a long time. I would have made some of them really exciting. I would have changed costs. I would have used the same dice, the same cards, released a little piece of paper that you put over the text box, and it would have been super, super safe. And I would have felt confident saying, like, I took the safe approach. We're going to shake the games up a bit. But that is not what you guys did. You have new mechanics, all this cool stuff. What was your thought process before trying to do something so massive?
This is where the ego comes in. We definitely bit off more than we could chew very early, and then we had no choice but to follow through. We didn't think it would be such a huge undertaking to make entirely new mechanics and cards, but we did, and then now we have to make it work or walk back on it. And our egos are just too big to walk back on stuff that we promised. So that's part of it. The other part of it is we have a ton of talented people putting an enormous amount of time to make sure that mechanically this stuff works. And there's definitely decisions that were made, and there's definitely game design goals that we established that are still in their foundational stages here. So a lot of cards are going to get hate. And this is kind of like dipping off of the question, but like when we are setting up this set to rotate legacies out, we're not just extending the Convergence trilogy meta, we are establishing the future Faltering Allegiances start point for that standard. So we need to kind of reset a lot of things. We can't just continue on in the same way because there is definitely a power spiral, not even power creep, but a power death spiral that occurred throughout the Convergence block. And we needed to kind of like push pause on that and bring everything back down and try to establish some core principles and design goals from the ground up that wouldn't have been possible if we had just extended something out or continued in the way that it was going.
Okay, a couple of questions then about that. How do you sort of stop that power creep spiral if the cards that are creeped are still in the game? If you're looking to the future and like, okay, when these cards rotate out in a year, 2 years, however long it's going to take, then we're going to be able to kind of hit the reset button. How do you make cards that are impactful but not super powerful? Do you know what I mean? Like, why won't we just look at this whole set and be like, unplayable, 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 cool, I guess I just play with Convergence cards.
By shifting the power where it lies. A lot of our power pushing in this set is in the characters, and it's in the plots, and it's in a few key concepts that we want to establish, basically a color pie, a faction pie for each color. So there are definitely staples that you're going to see in here that you're going to want to play with, even though I guess recently, like the card that's been getting a lot of discontent is Sith Warblade, and they're not wrong in that it is inefficient for its cost and in its color and faction. We're very comfortable with, Sith Warblade just kind of sitting on the sideline for a while. There's other things in Villain Blue that you can play, not just from Convergence, but from Faltering Allegiances that we're sure people are going to want to play with. And then when the time is right, they're going to roll back around and maybe go, you know what, this is like, I don't love Sith Warblade, but it is the best option I have at this moment in time. And that's far future thinking. Legacies in particular as a set, and then the entire block really pushed removal. Mitigation got really, 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 really good, really fast. And then that kind of prompted a design approach with like Pulse Cannon and Mega Blaster Troopers and Vader's Fist, where now we have to have things that get around that amazing mitigation to be relevant. And then that just pushes more mitigation further. We in the last World Championship, like we're in a position where Beguile was considered not good enough. And so I know you're just coming back to the game. So Beguile, 2 cost, blue neutral, roll a die, turn a die, remove a die.
Yep, I remember it.
And that's not good enough. So something has to give there, or else you're just printing better removal to handle the better supports and upgrades. And then you're printing characters that have ridiculous health totals eventually, or ridiculous die sides. And there are physical limitations to how far up you can go. Trying to keep track of 15 damage tokens on a character is already not easy. Trying to print dice with more than 1 digit in the die sides is kind of obscene.
Oh, wow.
And
this does 12 melee damage, and your character has 36 health, so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and we weren't there yet, and
right.
we weren't going to be there for a while, but we could kind of see it on the horizon, and it's just like, let's just nip it in the bud here. We'll take the opportunity with all this amazing mitigation rotating out. We're still going to have to deal with some of the major upgrades like Mega Blaster Troopers or Chewie's Blaster and stuff like that, but those are the exceptions now, not the rule to what makes a deck function.
That makes a lot of sense, because when I was looking over the new weapons you all put out, I couldn't help but evaluate almost every one as like, okay, it's 3 costs, doesn't have redeploy, is not broken. So therefore, I guess it's unplayable. And it sounds like you would be willing to say, yeah, maybe it is unplayable today, but we're comfortable with that because we're designing into a space where that will no longer be the case, and that will be a reasonable weapon in the future.
Yeah, like we just put out the Weapons of War article, and so in that is Jiro Tapal's lightsaber, and it's pretty run-of-the-mill. But it's different from Jedi lightsaber if you're not in a major Jedi theme, and so we can build on that. That's a card that not every single deck is going to like, but some of them will. Some of them will use that card, and that's important. On the flip side, if you are in Jedi, you are going to be using BD1. Like it's almost absurd not to have that card included, but it doesn't end the game faster.
Right.
And so one of our other design goals was to make games last at least a round longer. And by scaling everything back a little bit and pushing things here and there in the right directions, we can make the games last longer, be more interactive, and get around the frustration that comes up sometimes when your game is over by round 2 and you know it, but you still have 2 more rounds to play.
Yeah. I got to agree with you on the removal thing. Like, I was looking at lists. Like, I was looking at a Palpatine list, and I was like, oh, cool, this Palpatine card looks fun. I'm going to try it, right? And I looked at the list from the last meta, and I was like, wow, all of these amazing removals are still legal? That's crazy. And then I went to build it in the new ARH standard, and like, now there's no removal. What is happening? And I'm having to go through and be like, I guess this pretty bad removal is my card. And then, in fact, I was like, you know what? Palpatine doesn't even work with yellow anymore. Yellow was like the removal king, and now yellow removal is not great. Like, it's like electroshock. So I'm going to go into red so I can at least do things like best defense. So I think it's really intriguing that I feel like I'm going to be jumping back into the game at a place I'll probably be more comfortable. Because to be perfectly honest, Awakenings is my favorite because that was the lowest power level that the game was ever at. And as it scaled up, I found the game to be less enjoyable because, like you've been saying, it was faster. I felt like there were less decision points because things were so strong and so good. It was just kind of like, obviously, I'm going to remove the 3 melee. Whereas in Awakenings, it was kind of like, okay, they rolled out a couple damage. Is it even worth removing it? Should I do my own thing? Like it felt like there was a lot of give and take that has sort of disappeared. And maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe there's still just as many meaningful decisions, but it just feels like the lower power level at least is going to be more enjoyable for me.
Yeah, and we introduced more paid sides than I think people are used to. There's more modified sides in what we would consider to be core cards that people are going to have to contend with. The number of ways to focus more than one die at a time has gone down drastically. Just things of all that nature, it all kind of plays into reducing the overall power level and bringing back the level of interaction that I think really brought people to the game to stay after they were already sold on the Star Wars IP.
Yeah. Last thing on this question, transformations, man. Like, I haven't played with really any cards from transformations, but they look way over the curve. And I know you guys just banned, was it called Faltering Companions?
Faithful Companions.
Faithful Companions. Similar but different. That card seemed completely broken, so I'm way behind that. Funny enough, for anyone who's watching, that was a card where it was like a plot where you did your activation twice when you activated, and Anakin says do 2 damage to somebody, and now it would do 4, which is totally obscene. And I went into the forum and I was like, hey, has anyone tried this Faithful Companions with Anakin? And everyone kind of laughed at me, and they're like, wow, okay, Tiny wasn't joking. He really hasn't been playing. And then and then I was like, and people are like, it's good, but it's not broken. I was like, all right, it's broken. I'm going to break it. And then within maybe 45 minutes, the announcement came it was banned. So that was kind of funny for me. I was like, okay, I saved myself some time by having you guys ban it now rather than in 2 weeks from now. So I appreciate that. But my question is, do you have any other plans with transformations? Are you going to keep an eye on it? Or are you just saying it'll rotate with the convergence meta, which is already power spiked? We're just going to plan on dealing with it until it rotates. What are your sort of initial thoughts on it?
If anything is absolutely absurd under ARH standard, then we will deal with it in one way or another. But as it stands, without Faithful Companions, we don't anticipate anything insanely broken from transformations. It's really, kind of hanging my ass in the wind a little bit to just make that blatant statement. But we did look very hard. We did poke and prod and try to figure out what could be done that would invalidate other efforts. And we think it's going to be okay. All
right. So you've done a lot of research into it, all right. This isn't just FFG made it, therefore we're going to deal with it. It's more of we built our stuff with that in mind. We tested it. We think it's fine. If it's not fine, we'll deal with it when it's not fine.
We definitely we were able to find some things ahead of time and change our cards to match better. But that's just part of the process. It's always going to be part of the process.
Yeah.
Okay. So not a single card from Faltering Allegiances was nailed in one go. Every single one underwent some form of change and iteration, and not just in terms of making sure the rules text makes sense, but fundamental cost changes, effect changes, condition changes, things like that. And that's just part of the process to make sure you get this done right. Is if you think you nailed a card in the first try, I promise you're probably missing something somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Can you give an estimate on how much time your team spent on card design? It was probably in the thousands of hours, would be my guess.
Yeah. We started work on design about 2 months after our initial announcement, and we didn't finish the bulk of the work until I would say late July, mid-August, somewhere around that time frame. And then even up to a little while ago, we were still finding typos or misspellings or bad apostrophes in places, and we're still getting beat up on Discord because we definitely let We let one through, and it was bad.
Yeah, I saw that conversation. Um, do you have any plans at all of sort of revisiting older sets and reworking them? Kind of like I was talking about, like an Awakenings Reborn or Reawakenings. For me, I think this is a selfish thing, just because I loved Awakenings so much. But I would love to see like that whole set. Maybe not the whole set because there was quite a bit of removal, but like especially the character sort of brought back. There were a lot of basic iconic characters. Bring them back, tweak them, make their costs more reasonable because they all, like the whole set's overcosted pretty much. And I don't know. That to me sounds exciting. I don't know if it sounds exciting to you.
It's certainly interesting, and it's something that we've talked about. But anything like that is going to have to wait for two things to happen. Number one, we have to be 100% sure that FFG is completely done, that they are not pushing any more updates. They are not going to push any more product. They are not going to touch the rules or the holocron or anything like that, because it would just be terrible if we tried to get players to hold two different versions of the same card in their head at the same time. The second thing we would need to do before basically taking on kind of what I would consider to be a pet project like that is to make sure that we have the buy-in from the community. This first set is really going to be a test of that. Like, do we have people's faith? Do we have their trust and their confidence? Yeah, so we definitely need the community buy-in. And I'm going to kind of make an analogy to the Star Wars movies where Disney, Lucasfilm, they made other movies. They made the prequels, they made the sequels, they made Rogue One and Solo, a Star Wars story. And you may not like any individual one of those movies, or you may love them, but you'll go back and you'll try again because something is there. They made something you didn't like, but you'll give them another shot. If they started to go back and do more special editions to the original trilogy, well, that's touching something special and near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. And you got to do something like that with every bit of care, every possible precaution. And we see Awakenings as something extremely special to a lot of people. And so we need to be very, very careful around it.
All right. That's a fair answer. Do you have any plans of supporting anything like, say, an Awakenings only format with like, I don't even know how much the Holocron has addressed the costing of Awakenings cards. I know I streamed a few weeks ago and it was funny. One of the person watching was like, so are you using all the errata? And I was like, I don't even know of any errata, so I guess not. And we had a great time. It was lots of fun.
Right now, we definitely have our hands full with ARH standard. So that's what we're going to be focused on. That's what we're going to make sure we get correct before we start doing other things.
I think that's probably the right answer. All right. So I think we can agree on this. Cards are going to be broken. You guys might have spent thousands of hours and put your heart and soul into this, but it's just the nature of card games, right? That cards are going to end up being broken. There's going to be problems. Do you have plans for like how you're going to handle them? What sort of the threshold is for deciding something needs changing? Because if nothing else, every week or so, someone's going to be whining about how a card is broken. Because since FFG didn't make it, you guys must have messed it up. And that's why I'm not having fun with this card. And that's why this card beat me today, because it's broken. What's your plan with that?
So we're going to be pushing a balance update every single month where we'll let people know where our heads are at and what we're looking at and concerned with. And we're going to be actively soliciting feedback. Not every bit of feedback is going to be taken into account. It is sometimes a little obvious if somebody just has an axe to grind against a specific card or something like that. But things that would definitely trigger an immediate response from us would be any sort of infinite loop or any sort of total lockout on an opponent. It is a game. We want people to play a game. We don't want them to play solitaire against somebody held captive. So anything that fundamentally breaks the rules of the game in the sense that you have two people who are supposed to be interacting, at least on some level, that would get an immediate response. Everything else, we're going to take it into consideration, take a look at it, and if it is a concern, we'll do our own internal testing and figure out a good solution. And, that's kind of promising the world. Some people aren't going to be happy no matter what we do in that regard. And that's just something we're okay with. But we will be regular, but we will not be overreactive.
All right. That seems like a fair approach. I really like your acknowledgement that someone is always going to be unhappy. I've never seen a meta, no matter how much I loved it, that there wasn't at least one person who absolutely hated it and thought it was the worst meta they've ever played in any card game. Just how it works. So I think I know the answer to this question, but are you considering revisiting the Eternal format at all, or are you pretty much just focusing on ARH for now, like doing some tweaks to Eternal, banning maybe some of those cards that are just so far over the power level that it's not working out, or are you just kind of being like, Eternal is what it is for now, and hopefully at some point we'll have the resources to deal with it?
That's really hard. Data collection for the Eternal format is sparse. There's much fewer people who play that format, and when they do, it's usually not in a forum where we can actually pull what they're thinking and the results of all that. So we're going to have a much lighter touch, especially at first with Infinite. But we are working with an individual who is really passionate about Infinite, and is the Dice Commando guy, and he already pushed his own kind of informal RRG, and we basically looked at that and we said, man, that's a lot of work. That all has really good thought process behind it. That makes a lot of sense. We're pretty comfortable, at least initially, just co-signing off on that. And, lending whatever weight and credence people put into us, we're more than happy to put that back into you and to encourage you to keep that format as healthy as you see fit.
That sounds like a great approach. Understanding that you only have so many resources, and if someone is willing to put their resources into this other format, then awesome. We can use that as a primary data point. That sounds smart. All right, so I feel like you're trying to fill the role of FFG here, right? In like being stewards of the game. So my next question is, we know we're getting cards. That's awesome. That's step one. Can we expect things like Worlds, sanctioned tournaments, Friday night Magic-ish events, Player of the Year awards, ranking systems, like majors? What are you guys leaning into as like, these are areas where we do see ourselves going initially, these are areas that maybe we'll go into, and these are areas that's going to be up to the community, and we're not going to really delve into that? What do you think?
We want to. The demand is certainly there for organized play. But again, like the legal aspects of it, this whole coronavirus lockdown, social distancing aspects of it is really pushing that onto a back burner. We have plans, we have thoughts. We're not in a position where we can take action on any of them immediately, though hopefully, when all this stuff does get cleared up, we can at least give a foundational approach to that sort of thing.
Okay.
So that's a bad answer. Nobody's happy with that answer, but that's the one I have.
That feels very much like a legalese kind of like, we don't want to step in it right now answer. We've got some ideas that we're not really ready to talk about until FFG is officially out of the picture. That's what I'm going to chalk that up to.
It's a terrible answer. Sorry.
No, I get it. I will say, I think it would be really cool if, once FFG is officially out of the picture, to do things like track Player of the Year. I think that's just a really fun, cool thing. Like, whether it's a community-run tournament, whether that's a tournament you guys are running, tracking like who is doing the best this year in this meta, and then having that. I think that would just add like that whole other layer of just fun. It's always fun to look through history of games. And it's one of the things that's always been disappointing with FFG games is there isn't really that historical element, right? Where you can look back and be like, here was the Player of the Year this year, this year, this year. It's more of just like a remembrance of like, I remember Honestly Sarcastic was awesome, and he won a ton of games and events. I don't even know what year he started. I don't know when he was dominant. I just know like a general feeling that he was great, right? And it would just feel, I think it would just be cool to have that kind of data. Maybe that's just me as someone who's really data driven and, you know, like into sports and that kind of stuff. So I don't know. We'll move on from that because I know you don't have answers. I'm just putting that in your ear, something to think about.
We are dipping our toes in. We are having a release party on the 17th. You can go to the website and sign up there and get in on that. And we are dipping our toes into providing some alt art prize supports and, you know, just a general all-around feel-good celebration of we're finally getting this set out the door. Please come play with it.
Nice.
There's going to be some full play sets raffled off, which were generously donated. And that's absolutely amazing. That was kind of shocking to me that that was somebody was willing to do that. And, you know, we're excited for that in the short term at the very least.
Nice. That sounds awesome. I'm going to do my best to make it to the event at least, I don't know, in some capacity, whether that's playing a few rounds. I kind of doubt my family's going to be cool with me just playing Destiny all day, but we'll see. Maybe I can convince them. Maybe I'll be on tap to like provide some commentary on some other players' games, though I don't know that would be helpful, right? It's like, I don't know what any of these cards do, and I don't know their place in the meta, but I've got some ill-informed opinions here, so I'm not sure how helpful that actually is now that I think about that.
Well, I think that is actually valuable because we are, in no small way, with this, that we are needing to engage with the lapsed player base. We are needing to reach out and recapture those players who have been gone for so long and give them good reasons to come back and give it a shot. So the fact that we got your attention is really encouraging to me personally and to the team in general.
Nice. I'm happy to hear that. I was really impressed with everything that I heard, and I think I said it in my last video that one of the reasons I left the game is just FFG isn't great at running games, right? They're awesome at making them. They make amazing games, and then running them, it's hard. Like, it's not an easy thing to do, and so I don't know. I'm eager to see what someone else can do with a game that I love so much. That's what it comes down to. All right, another question. It looks like I saw people playing best of three. Is that the normal tournament format now? Is best of three?
Not always. So the most common ways to play right now is there's a basically like a Skype group that still plays physically, and they have a Discord server and they run tournaments that way. I'm not sure what format they use. And then there's the Artificery League, which is still going on, where people are able to select whether or not they want to play their Swiss matches best of three or best of one. Mm-hmm. And then in the top cuts, it's best of three. The community in general has really gotten on board and embraced the best of three for the most part, unless they're crunched on time.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it adds another layer of skill to it. But I was wondering, is there any interest in moving to a best of three where you bring a light side and a dark side, and in order to win, you essentially have to win with both?
No, we never really gave that any thought.
All right, just something that sounds interesting, you know. Sounds very thematic. Let's see. I only have a couple more questions for you. I think one of them is, and I think I know your answer to this, but are you worried at all about all these other people who are making cards, right? It's like whenever a game dies, there's just people who come out of the woodwork that are like, I've got these cool card ideas that I've been thinking of forever, and I spent a bunch of time on them, and they post them on Facebook, and they post them on Reddit, and so now there's like, I don't know if I want to say competing cards, but a whole bunch of other people making cards. Does that concern you at all? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, this is where the ego comes out. I think we have the best approach. I think we have the best cards out there, but ultimately that's going to be up for the community to decide. I'm sure if you had one of their designers on with you right now, they'd say exactly the same thing. Everybody is passionate about their ideas. Everybody is passionate about what they can bring to the table. We've definitely reached out to some of those people and said, like, look, you have some amazing ideas here. Please, if you can roll in with us, if that's something that you're comfortable doing, we'd love to have you on board and integrate some of these concepts that you're bringing to the table and get more unified that way. Some of them have taken us up on it and given us, basically license to like, yeah, absolutely use this idea. Some have said, you know what, no, I want to maintain my freedom. I'm not comfortable with that. And there's no hard feelings there. Ultimately, it is going to be the community. Whoever they decide to go with, they're going to have the reins. And I'm not going to stop anybody from doing that at all. It would be the height of arrogance to just assume that we have the 100% correct approach. I think we do, but I'm not going to be like talking down on other people's ideas or anything like that. It'd be absurd.
Yeah, that seems like the right
Christ knows we have so much to criticize ourselves. Like,
yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds like a good approach. I kind of want to leave you with this last question of, you already started talking about this a little bit, but what do you say to those who left the game? Maybe they left the game after Awakenings because Spirit of Rebellion was just too fast. Maybe they left the game because they just didn't think FFG was doing a good job with huge product delays and balance delays. And just why should people return now that they continue? Is it Continuum Committee? Is that what you're called? I believe so. Now that you guys have taken over.
Well, I mean, you can't beat the low price of free, right? So it doesn't cost people anything to give us a shot. It's just a little bit of time. Take a look, see what you like, see what you don't like. Maybe spin up Tabletop Simulator and give it a go here in a week or so. You may love it, you may hate it, but there's no reason not to at least try. And then we are very committed to an integrated approach. So we're not just going to be putting out images and sticker sheets or anything like that. We are rolled into the Star Wars Destiny database. We're rolled into Tabletop Simulator. We're trying to give people the easiest way to access our cards and to give them a shot as possible. We're really trying to reduce the burden on the player base to get more Destiny. And I think that's one area where FFG really dropped the ball, was they just kept introducing hurdles in a lot of these areas with Destiny. That people loved it, people were banging down the doors to play it, but they just couldn't in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I'll never forget Awakenings in that way. Like, we had hundreds of people that wanted to play with us, and we had to be like, I'll loan you a deck, but you literally can't buy the cards.
And we've also been reached out ourselves to localization teams who are translating our work already. They're already right now translating it into Portuguese and I want to say Polish. And then we're also reaching out for other people who may want to contribute in that way to talk with us, and we can get the ball rolling on that as well. And there's no money in it. It's all a passion project. But being able to reach the maximum amount of the Destiny player base worldwide is really a help there.
Yeah, this all sounds great. The free side, I have to admit, is really enticing for me, because one of the reasons why I left the game was like, I'm just playing on Friday nights with my buddy John, and we're having a good time, but a new set's coming out, and it's going to cost us like $300. We have no one else to play with, and we can't get out to tournaments, and there aren't really any tournaments anyway. Are we really going to keep spending like $300 every 3 months to just play this game on John's tabletop? And it just kind of got to the point where we were looking at each other and like, what exactly are we doing here? Like, there's a lot of things we could do, right? Like, Fortnite is free. We could do that. We could, play a board game. We could do a million things. So I think for me personally, the free element is certainly enticing. Though I will say, Zion, now I'm like, I kind of need the whole convergence set, and I literally don't own a single card from that whole block. What's that going to set me back? Has the bottom dropped out of it yet, or is that actually still a really expensive purchase?
I don't even know. I got my play sets right as each set released, and so I never really paid attention to the secondary market.
All right. Well, I guess I have some research to do.
A little bit, yeah. That's on you, bud. Man, you mentioned John Bruno. If I'm your Voldemort, he's definitely mine. Minor story, store championship. It was like the second round, I believe, and I had lost the first round, but it was a close game. Second round, I'm going up against him. He's playing Poe Ray. He wins the battlefield roll. He selects Emperor's Throne Room. He rolls out Poe, double special. I don't have any way I can actually handle those because I had mulled 5 to try to find removal and whip. Ooh. So he's got double special on Poe. I take my action. He takes his action. It's double mind probe, and I just lost a dude. So I just all right, looks like I'm done at this tournament here, boys. Good game, Mr. Bruno. I've got a 2-hour drive back down to San Diego to take.
Yeah, the 0-2 start usually does not a championship make. That's
not at all.
That is great to hear that Bruno is your Voldemort, because he's pretty much everyone's Voldemort. For those of you who don't know, if you only know John through my podcast, he was certainly an effective Destiny player, but he was never a dominant player. But in Game of Thrones, he's like the legendary figure who won multiple titles, and it's just I think people would vote him as the greatest Thrones player who played. So it's kind of like Destiny was his mess around game after retiring from Thrones, and he was still, quite proficient at that as well. So good times for sure. I'm trying to get him to play Saturday. I'm trying. I don't know if I'll be successful.
Nice.
We'll see.
Look forward to it.
You know what I'm going to tell him? I'll tell him I'm going to pay his entry, and we don't have to tell him it's free. We don't have to tell him it's free. That'll get him in. He'll be like, oh, wow, Tiny's so generous. He's going to pay my entry fee. Oh, yeah.
Just give him with that infinite value proposition.
Exactly. I think we can get him. All right. Well, Agent of Zion, thanks so much for coming on and being so transparent. I think that's going to help anyone who's thinking what is Tiny doing? Why is he making a podcast for this dead game? I think people are going to hear this interview and think it's worth giving this a shot, right? I don't have much to lose. Like you said, it's not really a financial investment, especially right now with the pandemic going on. Most people cannot play at a shop anyway. You're playing on TTS, so why not, right? Why not? That should be your tagline, just in big, giant letters. Why not?
Well, hopefully it gets the community buy-in, and I mean we already are really excited. But if people love it, then that's just a cherry on top to the effort. And we've already started work on set 12. So we're in it for the long haul. Love it or hate it, this set at least. We're gonna be plugging away as though we've already succeeded.
Nice. I think that's the right approach. Boy, exciting times. I just want to say one thing before we go. On TTS, I discovered something, people out there. If you're old and half blind like I am, just scale up your dice. I played with El Rathion yesterday, and I scaled up my dice 10 times, and there were these giant things. It was awesome. I could just look down, and it was like I was playing in person. I think I drove El Rathion crazy because my dice were everywhere and all over his side of the board, but it was wonderful, I gotta say. So if that's why you haven't been playing on TTS, just scale up the dice. You can read them then. It's great.
It does help.
There we go.
And we're still all in single digit die sides. That's key.
I don't think I've seen anything over 5. Saw, I think maybe has a 5 on it. Or maybe it's Saw's gun that has a 5 on it.
In our set, yes, 5 is the biggest. I think that Planetary Bombardment, I think it has a 7 side.
Okay.
It might be a 6.
I don't really remember that card. Is that the one that's all indirects?
Yeah, it's 4 indirect sides, or 3 indirect sides and a disrupt, 4 indirect sides and a disrupt, something like that.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate you spending the time. I can tell that you have put a lot into this. All the other people I've talked to on the committee are just really excited and really have put a lot into this. So that's what makes me excited about this, is that you all are. This is not something that this committee just like last week was like, we should do this, and then winged something out. This has been serious dedication, serious time put in. They're in it for the long haul. So I encourage all of you out there, come next Saturday. Let's throw down some Destiny. Let's have some fun. Let's give this thing a shot. Let's support these guys and the work they've been doing. And you know what? Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time on the Smugglers Den. I believe the outro is keep smuggling, keep smuggling.
Well, this was a lot of fun, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. That was great.